Hello everybody, welcome to Banishers Ghosts of New Eden. The game just released a few hours back and I've just downloaded it and I'm going to test it out on an RX 6600 GPU. As you can see right here, paired with the Ryzen 5 3600 and 16GB of DDR4 3200 MHz RAM. Let's go over the settings first. We are using the maximum settings right here. As you can see, 1080p full screen mode, frame rate is unlimited. We are not using any FSR2 currently. We are using TAA at 100% resolution scaling, and motion blur is turned off. The rest of the settings are at very high. Alright, so this is the maximum that you could go. Okay, let's head right into the game and let's start counting the frames here. Currently the frame rate seems pretty good. As you guys can see, it's at 60 FPS right now, and I'm trying to jump from here. I don't know where to go. Let's see where our game leads us. Alright, so I had to press E there, not space. That was pretty weird. So everything you do in this game goes with E. And there's a monster. We have to just press click here and they will be dead. Nice. And another one. Alright, we're getting about 57 FPS average currently and going into the 70s now. The area is becoming lesser and lesser intensive, so I would like to move forward. And yeah, the game looks kind of good, but it's not very amazing looking compared to other 2024 games. And also the performance, it just lines up with the quality of the game, the graphical quality of the game, and it's not very intensive also. As you guys can see, getting about at ultra very high settings, we are getting about 55 FPS average for now. Let's go over and let's just try and use FSR2 and look at the quality of the game, because we're currently using TAA. I'm going to use FSR 2.2 on quality, and I'm going to increase the sharpness to about 69%, which is pretty nice. Okay, let's apply this. Go back, and the grass looks shimmery now compared to previously. But the game looks a little bit more sharper. Maybe if we adjust the sharpness slider a little bit lower than this. This game is, for the other games, I would recommend you guys to use close to 70% sharpness. But for this game, I think I have to lower it down. But let's see if we have to lower it down or not. I don't know what the block key is, because if anybody hits me, I'm gonna just die. Okay, let's quit this. Alright, let's load it. Currently, I think it's over sharpened, so I'm going to just adjust it a little bit. And I've still not looked at the performance, what we were getting. So let's apply 50%. Okay, now it looks better. It looks better, considerably better than before. Alright, let's start counting the frames now. Previously, we were getting about 55 FPS, and I could see some stutters now. We're getting 57, 52. Okay, the performance hasn't improved that much, or maybe we're in an area where there is a lot of stuff to look at. Yeah, it's more intensive, I think, than previously. So let's try and move forward. Yeah, seems like getting about 56 FPS average, but more in the 60s now, I would say, compared to previously. Now we've joined up with our guy here, and we were kind of lost, and we had to take another route. Still, as you guys can see on these logs, these wood logs, you guys could see that it was over sharpened. So I don't know what's going on with FSR2. Maybe I have to decrease the sharpness a little bit more. Let's go to like 35. Okay, now the grass started looking too softer. So I don't know what the sweet spot is, but at 50% it looked better, I think, compared to 35%. It was over sharpened still, but not that much over sharpening going on compared to 70% previously, which we were doing previously. Yeah, so now the FPS is decreasing. I think this is a good point where we should be testing out the game. There's a lot of houses now coming up, and the performance is decreasing. As you guys could see, we were getting some stutters also. So yeah, let's go ahead now, and I'm going to go ahead and change the settings here. Alright guys, so we are back, and I've enabled high settings, as you can see right here. Let's go ahead and show you guys 1080p unlimited. We are at TAA 100% and high settings preset. I've just restarted the game, and afterwards we are getting like 60 FPS, and I would say the game doesn't look that bad compared to ultra settings. It's still pretty good looking compared to very high settings. It's still very good looking, and there is not much of a difference between high and very high settings in this game. Although the textures, I would say they look comparatively pretty smudgy compared to very high. So the textures quality should be kept at very high for this GPU, for this kind of GPU, because this game doesn't require more than, like, I would say 8 gigabytes of VRAM. It was still under control at very high settings even, and at this area we're getting about 60 FPS average. As you guys can see, getting about 66. I would like to go back a little bit because I was seeing a little bit lesser FPS in this area compared to that one. Yeah, as you guys can see, getting about 58 FPS. And yeah, still locked in the 60s, which is pretty good. Yeah, so who the hell burns their own crops? Well, I don't know. Okay, now we're just rummaging around this town, this desolated town, and seems like we have got no one here. So getting about 64 FPS, this would be our benchmark area, because as you guys could see previously, we were getting lower performance in this area. So we're gonna go to FSR 2.2 on quality, and I'm gonna keep it at 50%. As I just tested out previously, you guys saw that we had some sharpness issues with this. So yeah, at 50% I would say it's a sweet spot for FSR2. And going into the 80s, and still we're GPU bound. So it seems like this game is not very intensive towards the CPU side, which is pretty good and nice to see for games like these. And Ryzen 5 3600 being still capable of running 2024 games is very nice to see. Yeah, so going to the 70, and still dropping into the 50s sometimes, which is not very good. Yeah, some areas are bound to do this, and they're going to be more intensive than the others. But as you guys can see, we're above 60 most of the times now, and that's still very good. Alright, let's go back here, and here we're getting now 70s and 80s. Previously we were getting about maximum 70s here. So yeah, let's go to medium settings preset now. I think I have to restart the game again. Alright guys, we are at medium settings preset now, as you guys can see right here. 1080p unlimited and TAA at 100% and medium settings preset. Alright, so at medium settings preset, the performance has increased, like I would say 5 to 6 FPS more from high settings, and the textures have started to look a little bit more bad compared to high settings. So I would keep the textures at ultra in this or very high in this case, and not go lower than that, because the game is capable of running within 8 gigabytes of VRAM usage again. So yeah, that's good. And the bushes and stuff have also started to look pretty bad. There's no shadows and stuff inside them. So yeah, that's not good. There's still some shadows in the game, but it's not very good looking now. It looks like a 2010 game now. So make it of what you can, but we're getting about 70 FPS, 72 FPS average. I just started counting the frames. Sometimes we're dropping in the 60s, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to drop from 60 or not. Seems like we're pretty consistent above 60 most of the times. So if you like a 60 FPS experience and you want to use native resolution and not FSR2, this is the way to go, I think, for you guys. Now we're also going into the 90s, as you guys can see. Let's go ahead and try to use FSR2 right here, FSR 2.2 on quality and 50% resolution, 50% sharpness, sorry. And yeah, we're in the hundreds. Okay, let's start counting the frames again. Seems like we're getting CPU bound a little bit now, and I don't think we're gonna get more we're gonna get a higher frame rate or not compared to native resolution at these settings, but let's try at least from our side. Now we're getting 75 FPS average. Still we're above 60 most of the times, but I would say that FSR 2.2 in this game kind of looks very good compared to native resolution. So if you use FSR 2.2 to get higher frame rate, it's still possible, and the game will not look bad compared to native resolution. Now in my testing, as I'm doing right now, I cannot see much difference compared to native resolution. It's still it looks a little bit over sharpened, as I mentioned previously, but still looks very good. Alright guys, let's go lower now. Let's go to low settings preset, and I'll be right back with you. Alright guys, we are back with low settings preset, as you guys can see right here. 1080p, unlimited, TAA 100% and low settings preset. Alright, so we are now getting about 80 FPS most of the times, and in the 90s also, but still it's dropping into the 60s sometimes as I tested a little bit with low settings, and still is going into the 60s. So I think this is kind of a CPU bottleneck scenario now. As you guys can see, we're getting like 50% CPU usage and 70 watts of GPU usage, like 80% GPU usage, which is not very good. So yeah, I would not recommend you guys to use low settings preset with this CPU and GPU combo. But still, if you guys want to play this game, you can easily play it at 1080p ultra, very high settings, and with FSR 2.2 on quality, it's gonna look very good. It's not gonna look like amazing. It's gonna be looking a little bit over sharpened. If you don't apply the sharpening filter, then it's gonna look a little bit softer. So you have to apply the sharpening filter, that's a given. But you're gonna see very good detail at 1080p, very high settings, that is. Now let's go ahead and apply here. We've got 77 FPS average. Let's apply FSR 2.2 on quality just for the sake of this video at 50% sharpness, and let's start counting the frames here. Alright, let's just make a same run we did before, and we're getting 80 FPS average currently. Looks like we're more in the 80s now compared to 70s previously. Also going into the 70s, dropping into the 70s right here. And yeah, going to the 60s also. So yeah, it's gonna be the same story because we're kind of a CPU bound right now. So that's a given, that's gonna happen. Alright, so we're getting 70s, 79 FPS average. Considerably the same, there's just a margin of error. Alright, so let's go to 1440p now and let's see how this game is gonna run. Alright guys, we are at 1440p. I'm using TAA at 100% and currently low settings preset. Alright, we're in the same area and let's start counting the frames. Now as we have some GPU headroom before we tested with the low settings at 1080p. So looks like at 1440p that 25% GPU headroom is gonna go towards the frame rate. And as you guys can see, we didn't get much of a difference in frame rate and it's still in the 70s. And although it's a little bit lower, but we're still in the 70s. Now the GPU usage is towards the maximum. We're getting like 90% to 95, 96% GPU usage, which is pretty good. And at 1440p low settings, it's gonna net you more than 60 FPS most of the times at native resolution. That is a pretty good saying for a game in 2024. Although we're using low settings, I'm still gonna try to run it at FSR 2.2 on quality. And let's try to use that. And now I'm gonna decrease the sharpness to 30%. I think it's gonna look pretty good at this. So let's try to run it. Yeah, it does. Indeed, it does. At 1440p. Oh my god, it looks pretty nice compared to native resolution even. So yeah, we've found the sweet spot, guys. Look at those branches. They are pretty sharp. And even from native resolution, this looks pretty good. I would say this is the sweet spot for this game. Let's start counting the frames again. And let's try to make a run through this area. And we're getting about 78 FPS average. Okay. And the GPU usage just dropped again, which is a given. It's gonna happen. And the performance is gonna stay the same. Now let's go to medium settings preset and let's see what performance do we get, if we get more than 60 or not. Alright guys, we are back and at 1440p medium settings preset now. Let me show you here 1440p unlimited and TAA 100% and medium settings preset. Alright, now we're getting into the 60s at 1440p. Let's start counting the frames and try to make a run through this area again. And as you guys can see, now the graphics are starting to look very good as medium settings are looking pretty good. At native resolution, we're getting like more than 60 FPS most of the times and also in the 70s sometimes. Now it's dropping, the frame rate has dropped like 5 to 6 FPS from compared to low settings. So yeah, we're going into the 50s now. So yes, FSR 2.2, I'm still gonna apply it now because it looked very good at 1440p and the settings that I used. So let's go to FSR 2.2 on quality. If you guys want to use at 1440p, you guys should be using 30% sharpness at quality and it's gonna look just amazing. Alright, let's start counting the frames again. And as you guys can see, we're getting into the 60s, higher 60s most of the time still. So we got some stutters, so our 1% and 0.1% lows are pretty bad now. But it's still very good looking and very good performing compared to previously. Now let's go ahead and go to high settings. Now we're gonna go into the territory of having lower frame rates, so that's a given. I'm gonna restart the game and I'll be right back with you guys. Alright guys, we are at high settings preset now. As you guys can see the frame rate there. And let's start counting the frames and make a run through this area. And yeah, let's talk about it. So we're getting about 54 FPS average or 50 FPS most of the times. Now we're totally GPU bound again at high settings. It's very intensive compared to medium. So if you guys want to get the best frame rate, I would recommend medium settings. But with high settings, you get the most visual fidelity, I think, with the game. Not the most, but the most feasible visual fidelity, I would say. Getting about 60 FPS at native resolution and also getting a very good looking game at 1440p. That's a pretty good thing to say. Now we're getting about 49 FPS average right now. If we apply FSR 2 to this, I think we're gonna get to the 60s again. So let's apply it at 30% sharpness, as you guys always know. So let's go ahead and start counting the frames again. We're still in the 50s. I would say it's close to 60, and this is pretty good performance at 1440p. So also the textures and stuff, this grass and everything looks amazing now. I'm still gonna try very high just in a little bit, but it's looking very good and also performing pretty good. Alright, let's go ahead and now go to very high settings quickly, and I'll be right back after restarting the game again. Alright guys, we are at 1440p now, very high settings TAA. Alright, as you guys can see here, and as you guys can see the frame rate, we're in the 30s. and we're totally GPU bound right now. The game looks the sharpest and the most amazing it can look. Yeah, the textures and stuff, and as you guys can see, the road, the textures on the buildings, they look amazing. They look pretty good compared to high, even, I would say. So I would say that keep the textures at very high for whatever settings you're using, because they're gonna look bad if you go ahead and apply high even for this game. Yeah, so getting about 39 FPS average, and that's not very good, so I'm gonna apply FSR 2.2. It's just gonna make the game look more sharper and more clear, as you guys saw previously. Yeah, so yeah, this is amazing looking, guys. FSR 2.2 quality in this game is pretty good. So getting about 45 FPS average, going into the 50s also coming into this area. Yeah, that's a pretty good result if you guys ask me. At 1440p, this game is what happened to our character there? We just got stuck. Alright, so getting about 46 FPS average, 46, 45, and sometimes going into the 50s also, which is pretty nice. Alright guys, so I think that does it for today's video. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.